I made 5 super easy and really cheap props for my D&D table, including one that can be used in 3 different ways, so it's basically like the Inquisitor lightsaber of D&D props, mostly just for show and not that effective. Okay, well, it's not that, it's actually like a different 3-in-1 thing where all 3 things are cool. Nailed it. Anyways, that doesn't matter. What does matter is that I'm going to show you exactly how to make them and some cool ways to use them. And what also matters is that I say thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. More on that later. Welcome to the table. I'm Kelly, and we're going to prop it like it's hot. Dude, just get on with the video. Yep. I've linked all the products I'm going to talk about in the description down below. These are affiliate links, so if you use them to make a purchase, then I get a small commission. I love finding or making battle maps for bigger battles. For me, it's just as much fun as the rest of the encounter design. But I don't prepare battle maps for every single encounter, because I'd rather spend more of my prep time on story and characters. That being said, it's still really nice to have a visual reference for my players during random encounters or smaller combats. I wanted a reusable grid that I could draw on, so I initially looked into whiteboards. But the big ones would be too much of a pain to store while not in use. Instead, I got this huge 24-inch by 36-inch laminated grid for $16. There's a free tool on the Incompetech website for generating a PDF with a grid. You can select your grid size and paper size and then download the PDF. Normally getting things printed in a big size is expensive because you have to get it done as a poster print. If you're fine with black and white ink on regular paper, then you can get it printed as a blueprint, also sometimes called an engineering print. You can get huge 24-inch by 36-inch prints for only a few dollars at Staples. I've also used this option to print a large-scale battle map. It was in black and white and it wasn't photo quality, but it was still cool to unroll a massive battle map on the table for under $5. Because we want to use this with dry erase markers, we also need to select the lamination option. It looks like Staples has a specific dry erase lamination option for a bit more money, but I've always just gone with the standard 3mm lamination and it's worked well enough. I'd also recommend picking up a meter stick or a soft tape measure so you can easily measure distances across your nice new grid. Giving your players a map that they can only decipher by going to a special place or at a specific time is a really fun quest. In The Hobbit, Elrond helps the dwarves read a secret message inscribed in moon letters. These runes are only visible under the light of the moon that they were written under originally. There are a number of examples of conditions that you could lay out for deciphering the map. Perhaps it can only be read by the light of a spell from a specific school of magic, or through a lens made from a very rare crystal only found at the depths of the darkest caves, or by the light from another plane, like stars from the astral plane or fire from the elemental plane. There are lots of cool and creative ways to set this up. It can be really fun to describe the reveal of these secret markings on the map, but it's even more fun to actually do it. You can create and print your own map on this aged paper that I talked about in my last props video, or you can age the paper yourself. Then you can use an invisible ink marker to write a secret message or markings on your map. The aged paper texture seems to hide the invisible ink really well once it dries, but definitely use it sparingly because if your players are really studying the map, they might be able to see it very faintly if you use a lot. Best to use dots or small markings rather than full letters because they're harder to recognize. When your players hold the map under the moonlight, or whatever it was that you came up with, have them lay the map on the table and use a black light flashlight to light up the secret markings. This does work in the daylight, but for maximum effect, I'd recommend dimming the lights. I'm sure this has been done lots before, but I first saw it on my friend's actual play show, Blackwater D&D.
No, it's a.
Oh,
it's
no!
Yes!
No!
Yes!
Wait!
We might have to try.
Oh!
Seeing their reactions and the excitement made me want to try it in my own games. Although I use a digital character sheet to manage my characters, I do still like to use spell cards. I find that when my spells are tucked away in collapsible lists or different pages of whatever app I'm using, I inevitably forget to use half of them, and just firebolt instead. Using spell cards means that I can have all of my spells laid out in front of me so they all get equal love and attention. Except Rope Trick. I always stock it, but we're never in the right situation. One day it'll save me. Anyways, I like the idea of a binder with cards, but I also like to have all of my things fit inside my dice box for a nice compact little setup. Inspired by 90s dad wallets, I decided to make a photo accordion.
Look at this thing! It's huge!
Except for my spell cards instead of overpriced school photos of my children. This way I could easily organize my spells by level, they're super quick to set up and pack up, and when I level up, they're expandable as well. I just got a pack of card sleeves from my local game store. I then used small pieces of thin clear packing tape on both sides to join them together. Leaving the space in the middle allows them to hinge and fold together. Once I'm done playing, they fold up nicely and fit inside my dice box. The last prop in this video is a DM controlled magic item that we're going to build for your players. But first, we're going to build something something that goes hand in hand with the spell cards. This is the 3-in-1 item that I mentioned earlier. It's also one of the quickest and easiest craft projects I've ever done. I also like to have a physical representation of my spell slots. Seeing them out in front of me in an obvious way helps me remember to use all my spell slots, and also helps me make quicker decisions about using spell slots as a reaction. I don't have to hold up someone else's turn by saying, wait, I might want to use a reaction. Okay. Hold on, let me just unlock my phone, and oh, it signed me out. I just gotta log in again. Oh, it's asking me to use the Authenticator app. Okay, all right, 1 second. Oh, okay, there we go, I'm in. Oh yeah, I'm out of second level spell slots anyways, I can't do it. Now, obviously you could just write these down on paper, but I like doing crafts. You can also use this counter if you're a DM, not for spell slots, but for tracking other things, which I'll explain later. I got everything I needed for this project at Michael's, but I've linked similar stuff from Amazon down below. The items you'll need for this project are a piece of wood, some cool beads, some pieces of dowel that the beads can slide onto, some number stickers, and some paint. Now, while I put this together, I'm going to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Skillshare. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives, with classes on a huge variety of topics, including crafts, illustration, writing, graphic design, and many more. I've taken a couple of courses on Skillshare, and I was really happy with the results. In fact, I took a course on making better YouTube thumbnails, and the result of that course is the thumbnail for this video. It was really easy to browse through the different courses and find some that I was interested in. Once I began the course, the information was laid out in really easy and consumable steps. The classes on Skillshare take a learn by doing approach where you can create and share a project after completing a class. Having something tangible at the end of the class felt really rewarding. The next course that I'll be taking on Skillshare is about making molds for resin crafts. I've always wanted to make my own dice, and once I finish the course, you can expect a video about the process in the future. The first 500 people to use my link will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So head to the link down in the description to try Skillshare for free, and maybe go learn how to make your own dice. Now that you have your spell slot tracker assembled, there are actually a few different ways to use it. You can either have one row of dowels and then just keep your spent spell slot beads on the table to fiddle with, or you can have 2 rows of dowels and put the spent spell slot tokens on the back row. If you're a DM, as I mentioned earlier, you can use this as well. It's a lot of fun to mysteriously track something in front of your players without telling them what you're tracking. For the DM variant, you can either keep the numbers or remove them, and then just move a single bead to different dowels when your players do something. Alternatively, you can just use the beads as tokens and give each player a bead when they do whatever it is that you're tracking. Brendan handed out mysterious tokens on a recent season of Dimension 20, and it drove his players crazy, in the best way. Maybe an enemy is trying to control your players and they're slowly wearing down your players' defenses. Randomly have each player make wisdom saving throws and then give them a bead on a failure. If any player gets a certain amount of beads, a trigger action can happen. Whenever your players ask what it's for, you can just shrug and answer, "You don't know." That's a sure way to keep them up at night, tossing and turning with wild speculation. And I love it. Making up magic items for your players is really fun. Actually, giving them a magic item in real life is even more fun, especially one that you can secretly control. There are a lot of different ways you could use this prop, but the first 2 that came to mind were a Lantern of Truth and a Lantern of Good and Evil Detection. I've made item cards for both of these items and linked them in the description below in case you want to use them as well. The main piece in this lantern is this submersible, remote-controlled RGB light. While initially coming up with the idea for this, I thought I might want the light inside the liquid. The light ended up being the perfect diameter to sit on top of the jar lid, so I didn't need to submerge it in the end. The light sits on top and shines down into the jar. This is great because you can easily access the charging port on the back of the light, which is this cool little magnetic cable. Inside the jar, I loosely followed some recipes for making DIY potions and then freestyled a bit until I came up with a mixture I was happy with. The liquid is a mixture of isopropyl alcohol, glycerin, and water. For color, I used purple mica powder. After filling the jar, I put the light on top and used hot glue to create a bit of a seal. I could have used an epoxy to make a stronger seal, but I wanted to be able to remove the light in case I want to change the liquid. The hot glue also won't be carrying any weight, it just needs to prevent some splashes from coming out. Next, I took some wire and made a handle. Then I wrapped twine around the top of the jar to hide the light and also to hold the handle in place. Finally, I made a circle with black poster board and glued it on top of the light to help hide the light, making sure to leave a cutout for the charger. Now you can keep the remote behind your DM screen and trigger the lantern as things happen in your game. You could have it detect lies, detect Fae or fiends, detect a certain type of enemy like Sting from Lord of the Rings, or your player's connection to a different plane. If you have a planes hopping campaign, you could dim the lantern by 1 step each day that the party spends on a different plane, and if the lantern goes out, they can't return home. If you want even more cheap and easy prop ideas like the aged maps I referenced in this video, or a health potion stand for your table, then check out this video here for 5 more cheap and easy props. I appreciate you.